I had to think differently so I would be in my inner peace.
Yeah.
If I just
Meditate
thought
harder.
differently or meditated longer,
Yep.
it would happen. But what the book told me is receptivity is the bridge from what I would call this, we survive our life and then we find ourselves and then we create our life. That's the personal development thing. I'm not surviving anymore. I'm not trying to find myself. I'm creating my life.
Welcome to Reward, the podcast of The Trust. We are the show specifically for women entrepreneurs who want to build businesses into the multi-million-dollar revenues and beyond, but especially because we know the reward is much greater than that. I'm Allie Brown, and I'm excited to introduce you to these diverse female leaders from a variety of industries, women making huge impact and who are unwilling to settle for the status quo. On the web, visit jointhetrust.org to learn more about our modern community for forward-thinking 7- and 8-figure women entrepreneurs. That's jointhetrust.org. See you there. Now, get ready to enjoy this episode's powerful conversation. I am so excited to bring this woman to all of you today. Her name is Rachael Jayne Groover, and we kind of go way back in some ways and have more in common, I think, than we realized when we met. But Rachael Jayne is just someone who I have come to respect so much as a spiritual teacher, from what she brings around the art of feminine presence, around what she contributes to the trust in the category, especially of feminine leadership and learning to do things. I'm going to change that to letting ourselves do things differently as women. And Rachael Jayne, I'm so excited to have you. I know you've certified people like all over the world. You run giant
Mhm.
retreats and workshops, and you have a new book coming out. So I'd rather have you explain a bit about your business and what you do.
Yeah, would love to. And it's so great to be here and to see you.
I
It feels like it's
know.
been too long. And yeah, I followed you way, way, way before you knew me. I was in the coaching industry and just wanting to understand how to build something that could make an impact for other women. And you were just the one, you were like the queen of the coaching world at that time. And so I was kind of in the background. And then when I heard about the trust, and was in that world, had thankfully, gratefully built a successful company. I was like, I definitely want to be with these women and with you. So I just cannot say enough first about the trust and being part of it, which is amazing.
Thank you.
And so, yeah, our company is the Awakened School. I run that with my husband, Dada Groover. And it's really all about awakening people's impact, awakening personally, awakening spiritually, and we do it in a range of ways. Mostly live, interactive events, because, like the power of when people are there in person, and there is multiple days to unwind these old patterns that you've been running, and that's very difficult to do when you're just in front of a Zoom webinar for
Yeah.
90 minutes or 60 minutes or something like that. I do some private mentoring as well, but most of it is through interactive live events that put some people through experiences that they don't really want to go through in a safe environment, so they can unwind just those contractions and the constrictions that they have
Hmm.
around whatever it is, being seen, stopping this sort of hiding that a lot of women do. Maybe it's around them having to run their business a certain way. Well, we've got to be able to do it in front of other people, not just think, oh, in my head, oh yeah, that's going to be great.
Expand more on
I mean,
that. You said you actually have them do the thing they're scared of in the workshop? I'm not clear. So what's
yes,
an example of that?
yes. Yeah, I mean, I think so. For Art of Feminine Presence, it was the first body of work that I was most known for, which is what you were talking about there. We've had, I think, now 14,000 women go through that program to some level. And so in that, it's very much about being visible in your own radiance, magnetism, presence, because a lot of us, I don't know if you can relate to this, but I definitely can relate to this, where I was told, don't be so shiny, don't be so big, don't be too much. Being Australian, it's the tall poppy syndrome,
Mhm.
don't just be modest, don't brag. So I had to get out of that when I moved to America, and everyone here was kind of more bold in their expression.
We have no shame. We have no shame. We're all putting it out there. You're like, "Yeah, I fit in right here." That's
Exactly. Well, actually, it was really healing for me to move to this country because at my core, I care about self expression. I'm an artist. I was a singer. I'm a writer. Like, I'm an artist at heart. But internally, there's a very core wound, or there was, of it is not safe to be seen. And I found
Mm,
out whether they were American, Canadian, Australian, European. We went to Japan many times. Like, no matter where they were, there is this deep seated thing in most women that is not safe to truly be
yes.
seen. And so, what we would do in Art of Feminine Presence, and still do, is we create kind of experiences that you might be in, and we teach you the practices that will amplify your presence, amplify your magnetism, amplify your ability to be unshakable no matter what.
Mm,
But then we create the experience that might make you a little shaky, right? Whether that's public speaking or a conflict with someone or people just giving you attention.
mhm.
And then they have to hold it. They have to hold the frequency we've taught them in the moment that it's happening, because all of our patterns got wound up in relationship to other people. And so if I just give you a book or tell you what to do, but I don't have the other person there who rounded up with you, it's just going to be more knowledge and theory versus truly a breakthrough physically, spiritually, energetically, and all of that. So we really
Mm,
create all the retreats around something very experiential.
yeah. So the transition into now, I know what's on your mind and what you're talking about a lot now, and the core of the book is this unshakable inner peace, this place where
Mhm.
apparently you can find yourself in a place that is so I don't know how to describe it, how that would feel like, because it's kind of, I've had those moments, but I'd like to learn more about this. I want to hear more about this, and how you have evolved to this place of wanting to put this on your platform.
Yeah, yeah. So 5 years ago, the first draft of this book came out in 4 days straight. So, just to give you a little backstory, I'm very, very excited about the book coming out because on New Year's Day, 2018, I was writing down my New Year's resolutions, like more time at the gym and more time in
A
this and
floss,
what how
yeah.
you do it, you know.
Finally, floss, yeah.
Exactly. And one of the things that came through is I want to reach enlightenment this lifetime. And I
Mm.
was so shocked with that idea. I was like, "What? Where did that come from?" That was not coming from my mind of writing down with the flossing in the gym. But it got me so, it was just such a visceral experience. I wrote it down and I started to unpack that I have not really believed, even though I've been on a spiritual path for over 20 years, I've never truly believed that that would happen to me this lifetime. It was even possible. It was something for like the gurus, the Eckhart Tolles and the Jesus and the Buddha and the this and the that. And I was like, had this realization. I didn't think that that was possible. And so I wasn't aiming up for that. I wasn't
Mm.
intending it. So I started intending it. I started really feeling into my desire for that unshakable inner peace, or what I was calling at that point enlightenment. I didn't tell anyone because as an Australian, you're not allowed to tell anyone that's what you're going for,
It's
like
a secret
it's
goal.
just
Shh.
secret goal. And I just kind of let it go. So I found myself in a writing retreat where I was going to write the third book, which I thought was going to be about how to help other people awaken their impact in the world, because we were doing all these spiritual retreats, we were doing Art of Feminine Presence, and a lot of people were asking us, how do we do a conscious business around that, because you've been able to keep in that integrity while building a really big business. So I thought, okay, that's what I'm going to write. Well, The divine had another plan,
Yeah.
and what happened very quickly was I was met with a voice that was extremely precise, very wise, very deep, clearly not my own. And it said, this book is going to be on one question, your most important question that you are holding right now. What is it? And it came very quickly, which was, is it possible for me to reach enlightenment this lifetime? Like, is that even possible? And the book was on a conversation with this voice about all the places that I was misunderstanding the process of spiritual awakening, even though I've been teaching it for so long. And so, long story short, that came out. It spun me into the most profound spiritual awakening experience I've ever had 2 days after the book was done. And my internal world has not even been close to being the same as it was prior to that writing of this book.
What changed in you?
Lots of things. And I think that um, being able to really see that personal development, your own self awareness, self development, getting better as a human being is so different to spiritual awakening. And I had
Mm.
put them in the same category. So if you think about it, personal development is about getting a stronger sense of self, better boundaries, better self care, better communication, better ability to witness yourself, your psychology, your defense mechanisms, all of that. And I was in a place back then, like, if I just get better at all of those things, oh, I am going to awaken. I am
Mhm.
going to drop into this never-ending state of peace. But I didn't realize, even though I'd heard it, that spiritual development is the opposite. If this is about building a sense of self and having it be strong, because that creates a healthy human being, it does.
Mhm.
Spiritual awakening is about the realization and the experience that I'm not Rachael Jayne Groover and that I'm experiencing that in every moment, that I am not who I thought I was. And it's about building both of those things at the same time. And I wasn't. I think whenever I would get caught in comparing mind or critical mind or seeking mind or grasping mind, I would go back to the personal development work to try to fix that.
Mhm.
And I wasn't really going toward, I have to be willing to let go that I am Rachael Jayne Groover.
Mm.
And I was not wanting to do that at that time because that scared the shit out of me, right? I was successful to a certain degree. What if I just start meditating on a hill? I'm going to lose everything. I'm going to lose the business, lose the house, just give everything over to the divine. Like, who's going to pay the rent? Like that was the mode that I was in.
Yeah.
And Allie, I need to just preface this. At the time, I was probably the happiest person anyone would have known. I was doing very well, but I was also humble enough to admit that there was something that hadn't quite clicked in for this consistent experience of peace and joy and not this continuous seeking and grasping mind going on in the background,
Mm. Yeah. Would you
right?
describe it as our human versus the divine? Like when we have that kind of battle, like when you talk about the personal development and all that, and I know that that can get a bit linear sometimes, right? Like, and our business can
Yeah.
get linear. Even it was interesting when you were talking about, of course, the next book's going to be on this, and because that's where we make typically strategic decisions. Like they want this, this makes the next obvious choice for a book.
Right.
So there's this kind of well, I'm mixing it up. There's the like linear and brain and the human, right? But
Totally.
then there's this divine pull. And I want to just echo something you said that I want everyone to take in, that you were already at a place, where you had achieved much wisdom. You were helping thousands of people
Yes.
already. And
Yes.
so, we don't want to
Yes.
discount that. But when we get to a place, which I'm relating to in my journey as well, there's something you can't put your finger on that is calling to you. And I know for
Yes.
me, it drove me crazy because I couldn't even articulate it to anyone. I couldn't,
Yes.
it wouldn't make sense to anyone as well. My journey is a little
Yes.
bit different, but, you know, I just love this epiphany that you've had, and it just seems you've reached this place that most of us would, we're like, "Tell us the secret," you know, to
Right.
to unshakable inner peace, and so,
Yeah.
what is the secret to this inner peace? Is it achieving this enlightenment, or is this something you've learned from the enlightenment? Like, I wanna hear more about it.
It's great because, an enlightenment is it's such a loaded word. It's like God. Everyone has their own version of what that means. But to put some context on it, what I mean by a spiritual awakening or enlightenment or the end of seeking is that the seeking mind that is part of the human part. I love how you say that. There's a human part and the divine part. The seeking mind that's never quite satisfied is part of the human to
Mm,
keep us alive, to keep us growing. And that stops at this awakening, enlightenment. And so it's quiet, nothing is going on. And prior to this, that was not my experience. There's a lot going on up here, right? There's a lot of moving pieces, not just in strategic linear things. Like my mind still absolutely works strategic and linear. But to have the chatter go completely silent
mm,
all of a sudden and stay like that was new.
mm,
And so to have that experience and to have it stay, there was certain things that took me through that portal. And I can share probably the biggest things today, and anyone can read the book, obviously. But the first one, and please interrupt me anytime, Ali. The first one was this idea of being ultra receptive. And so I was teaching receptivity. I was teaching feminine presence for,
yes.
like be receptive. But this was more than just being good at receiving support and receiving lovely compliments, like take it in. This was the energetics of receptivity. What
Mm,
does even that feel like? And so everyone can do that right now as you're listening. I can be on this podcast doing my thing. I could be talking to Ali, or I could switch into the mode of receiving Ali, of receiving the podcast, of receiving this moment. And when we do that switch, you can feel it.
mm.
There's something that happens, right?
Ooh,
I'm going more into it. Yeah.
okay. So almost
So
anything is an opportunity to flip it into receptivity.
absolutely.
Okay. I like it. I like
Absolutely.
it. This has been
And
hard for me. This has been a hard
receptivity.
journey for me, the whole receiving thing.
Yeah. So tell me what does it feel like when you go from being with me and doing this podcast to receiving me and this
Mm.
podcast and the moment? Can you put some words to what it feels
And
like? Let's do the
enjoyment. Um,
like the high, it goes up, enjoyment goes
of
up.
course. Of course, what I'm gonna say, it goes down. Well, even when I saw your name on my calendar this morning, I'm like, "Oh, I just wanna let you know that I was already excited to talk to you because 'cause I'm like, "Oh, this is gonna be a good one," you know? So, but yeah, the receive enjoyment, excitement. I'm not as attached to, outcomes, which is funny because my team's
Mhm.
giving me all the, "Don't forget to read her intro," and, I have all this stuff, and then I get in here and I'm just like, "Ah, I'm just with Rachel Jane." And, yeah, just this, flow. I'm picking up kind of a
Yeah.
golden color too, like, I'm getting multisensory stuff, like, just this,
Yes.
there's a piece to it when you
Yeah.
even you saying that I'm breathing differently now, and I'm more
Yeah.
present, and yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you think you could do this with
And then
almost
what
anything?
happens to your
Oh,
mind? What
um,
happens to your
it's
mind?
cleared out now. There's not like 1,000 Post-its and hamster wheels.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So the static kind of goes and all the kind of linear things go. And what I was thinking prior to this awakening in me was I had to think differently so I would be in my inner peace.
Yeah.
If I just
Meditate
thought
harder.
differently or meditated longer,
Yep.
it would happen. But what the book told me is receptivity is the bridge from what I would call this, we survive our life and then we find ourselves and then we create our life. That's the personal development thing. I'm not surviving anymore. I'm not trying to find myself. I'm creating my life. I know how to focus and I know how to. So to go from that creating my life to the spiritual awakening of I am the whole thing. I receive my life is the bridge to it. I didn't know
Mm.
what the bridge was. And so what happened through the book is I was in such a receptive mode for 4 days straight. And I was in Hawaii when I was writing it. And so I had a couple of days, and then I was doing back to back retreats for 11 days.
Oh.
And I made the decision I was going to receive these two retreats. I was going to have no plan. And I had people flying in from New Zealand and Japan. I mean, but it was starting to happen. I'm like, I got to just receive this. So I was lucky to have this extended period of time of only receiving. And it was starting to then shift, and everything was going very quiet. And so that showed me first that it was not my mind that was making me good enough to have this peace. It was something else. And I had to put this earth suit in a receptive experience in order to get it.
Mm. Wow. I'm just writing something down. um, were you alone during this time too, or was Dada there and you're like, "Get out! I'm receiving. Like, I'm writing this book." Like, were you like, "Don't bother"? I was just curious. I'm always curious, like in these moments when you had that sudden street when you're like, "This is I need to do this right now. I'm receiving this." Um, were you alone the whole time?
Well, no, I was with a lot of people the whole time. And that is the backdrop of the book as well. Actually, the second book. I've written a trilogy on this since. It's been very intense and very amazing. I was around first from the retreat. We were with other clients who were writing their book. We were doing it all together. I had a few days to myself just with Dada, maybe a few friends, and it was starting to go. But I honestly, I was like, what the hell is happening? I had multidimensional seeing before. I'd had visions before. I'd had, like you said, peace and foretastes before, but this was different. And so I'm kind of like, whoa, in the first few days.
Yeah.
Then I go to the Big Island, and this was while the volcano was going off. It just started going off on the Big Island. We're driving into that space, and then everyone starts flying in for the two retreats. And I'm around, thankfully, people who know me, who've been to like 3 or 4 retreats. And those that knew me were like, they knew something was going on.
Mm.
And that was so helpful, because how do you go back to the kids or your husband or your like and go, oh, honey, there's something weird going on. I need some time. Like I didn't quite know what it was as
Yeah.
well. So that was helpful. But at the same time, my husband, Dada, who's been actually a spiritual teacher in his own right, he's led ashrams before, he's had his own spiritual journey of 40 years. But we have differences of how we talk about it and see it. And so I would say to him some things, this is what's going on. And being the 8 on the Enneagram, the challenger he is, he'd be like, well, how do you know that's true? Is that voice just leading you down he would have his skepticism. And I would be like, I don't even really care about the skepticism in one sense because I'm just in bliss.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I could feel the underlying trigger. It was the first trigger that I could feel through this is him, not just saying, "Hey, honey, this is amazing." But that was the best gift because I could see what was trying to pull me back into just the human
Yep.
ego form. It was, give me a gold star that this is happening to me.
Yep.
And I could see it, but I had enough of this to not get contracted back into that and get upset by it. I just was like, okay, I just got to ride this wave. And I would come back. He did know something was going on. He did see it, but it was just these challenges and this little thing that caused some friction. that I had to work with, and again was the best gift in the end.
Mm. So let's talk about things that trigger us. I know that's something else you mention in the
Mhm.
book, and then how the last few years have been triggering years for many of us, and I feel like we're
Yeah,
being driven to get triggered more and more and more. And there's many ways to interpret triggering.
right,
There's things we may see
right.
we don't agree with, or but there's also those
Yeah,
personal things with the people around us. Um, I get triggered sometimes. I'm a pretty
exactly.
zen driver until I'm not, and then I occasionally will be. and then and then I'm always mortified someone's going to recognize me. To like, Allie Brown just flip someone the bird. Like, depends if I'm in the Porsche and what mood I'm in and what I'm listening
Right.
to, and if I'm, so
That's so funny.
ongoing. Let's talk about that, because triggers are seductive, aren't they? They're and even I'm going to talk about just someone new in my life right now. Everything's really wonderful until they kind of go into these patterns that sometimes make you realize your own patterns, and it's actually really good, because I'm realizing,
Totally.
oh, this is interesting. Um, his shit's bringing up my shit, and we're both
Yes,
kind of navigating through it. And I had to get to like this
yes,
higher place where
yes,
I had a more evolved perspective on it. And there's a lot more to it, but I'm just triggering.
yes.
The word trigger now. Tell me how you are
Yeah,
process, like, how do you interpret that, and with your work, what does that mean to you, and how do we
yeah.
evolve?
It's Yeah, it's a great example too with people close to us, or anyone can think about someone right now or something that's triggering you. Is of course that would happen, and I would do what any good spiritual, personal development guru woman would do, is look at it, own my part, everything you were saying, look at it in a more evolved way. I need to look at, and all of that. And so that's what that is my thoughts and feelings being the objects of my awareness, and the self-aware witness is what I'll call it. Right?
Okay.
So we've got the trigger, and we've got this self-aware witness that's looking at us being triggered, right? And so that's what you were talking about, that you're working with the self-aware part of you to see it in a more of an evolved way.
Right.
And then you come to that way, and then you get less triggered, at least in that moment. But voila, when it happens again or something else, it's back, right? And so what I didn't realize that the book described to me was I'm ending too early in as far as going back in awareness. So we have first level objects, thoughts. Second level, I don't really want that thought. Can I change that thought into a more positive thought? Yes, I can.
Right. That's
Okay.
what we're
And
taught.
that's the self-aware
Mhm.
witness. And I was like, again, like I shared earlier, if I just get this good enough, this is just going to go away. I'm never going to be triggered again. But what it showed me is, no, are you aware of this self aware witness? And the answer is yes, as soon as we ask that question, isn't it? Am I aware that I have a self aware witness that likes commenting on my thoughts and my emotions? And yeah. And so I'm aware of that. And this awareness doesn't comment on any of this. It's just aware. Does that feel right to you in your experience,
So,
Ali? That
yeah, to put it in a different perspective, you're going even a level above and looking at
yes,
outside of yourself almost.
you're just don't even worry about the outside of yourself. You're just saying, "Am I aware that I have a self-aware witness that likes commenting on my thoughts and my feelings a lot?"
Okay. Yeah. My answer would be yes, for
And then we
sure.
go,
Yeah.
"Yeah," and then you'll slide into that. Be that awareness. Be the awareness now that's aware of the commenter,
Mhm.
that's trying to make you less triggered
Mhm.
and more evolved. And then when I'm there, does that awareness try to change that? Is it doing the same thing that this is trying to do with your thoughts?
Hmm.
And when I'm back in that, I realize it's not trying to change that. It's just being. It's not going, well, the self-aware witness should be better. It should be not commenting on all. It's just aware. So we've got 3 levels now. We've got the thing I'm aware of, the commenter, or I call the middleman that I thought was the one that was going to get me there, but it's actually a further back awareness that this middleman is kind of an imposter of on spiritual awakening. It's great on psychological development
Mm.
because wouldn't it be good to be more self-aware? Absolutely. That's why you and I are happier than most people and probably less triggered than most people, is because we've built that self-aware witness to be strong. But I stopped too early. And so what would happen in this writing and the weeks after is I would be now being pointed to that. And that started taking over as my usual experience versus this
Mm.
commenter.
Mhm.
And that's why everything went quiet, because this awareness doesn't have, it's not saying anything. It's completely unconditional.
Mm.
And we know that God is unconditional, universe unconditional. It's just beingness, it's just presence.
Mm.
But again, I had to get so receptive for that to pop back into that experience and stay. And I had to realize that anytime I'd pull back into this self aware witness, that wasn't it. That wasn't it. Keep going back further. And I think the third thing I would add, which is very important, and a lot of the women that you move in circles with, is the embodiment piece, because we have these forward eyes that if we look out of our front eyes, you can just do it right now if you're driving or listening. When we look out our front eyes, we're naturally put in our linear, strategic, seeking, grasping mind. It just
Mm.
puts us there. We see objects, we label things. That's a painting, that's a light, that's my flip chart. But when I come back into the central core of my body, so the center of my head, and I imagine that my eyes are in the center of my head, not here, I
Mm.
start seeing everything and everything starts going quiet again.
Mm.
So the people that are talking about, and art of feminine presence and now art of masculine presence, have been all about embodiment, because if you can't have your natural state be aligned in your vertical core, it's usually forward, which is most business women, they're all forward. It's like catching something, and no wonder why they get stressed. And so just with that practice of being in the central part of my head and seeing with that,
Mm.
as well as receptivity, it was enough to have something come through and show me what I was. And it's not Rachael Jayne Groover.
Yeah. Woo! So how are you even gonna teach this stuff and lead it? Like, this is a whole other will this be I'm just curious, so you've written the book. When you come up with a whole new, a whole new content, and this is a whole new framework to explain,
It
what are
has,
your plans
yeah,
beyond the book, to help people really take this in? Like, how do you even
yes.
teach this?
Well, it is so nuanced, in my opinion. Like it's been so difficult to kind of even think about how am I going to speak about it. So what I did the last couple of years, while I was doing the final touches, because not a whole lot's changed. It was really a conversation of a voice telling me where I was screwing up and not getting it. It was kind of funny. If you want the ins and outs of while it was going on, it's an entertaining read as well as the spiritual guide. But I decided to do our Unshakable Certainty retreat that's based on this work, and I've done
Mm.
it 3 times now in the background with my inner
Oh,
circle.
wow.
And I did our Open to Receive retreat, and we do these virtual and in person because we were in COVID moment, and I would get everyone to set up their sanctuary. They'd be in it for extended periods, over many days, because there's no way that you'd get this experience and then it doesn't collapse back in if you're not in a multi-day experience of being receptive over and over and over and over again. So that's already and going, and you can just reach out to me however you reach out to me to find out when those dates are for 2024. But the retreats are off the charts. They're
Wow.
because it's taking that work and giving them the experience of it.
Yeah. Are those at your new retreat center?
Yes,
Yeah, tell
yes,
everyone
we
about that. That was
open.
such a cool decision.
Yeah, yeah. So it's been a dream of ours for a long time to have our own event space, retreat space, because as you can probably get a feel for this work, it's not the work that's always conducive to the usual Marriott ballroom,
Mhm.
and we're doing all sorts of things. And so I just really wanted to get into a high vibe, beautiful, because I'm a triple Taurus. Beauty, luxury is very important to me. Art, refinement. Ellie's the same, right? We all get that Ellie's the same. And have an energy of the place where we could take control over that because so much is about the energy. So we've been looking for probably 5, 6 years, found our place early last year, and it's opening in November in Loveland, Colorado. So people come into Denver, and it is this old historic church that we have renovated into a beautiful space.
Wow.
And to feel like we've got that from a business standpoint, it opens up so much flexibility. We'll be able to start. We're going to start our podcast next year because we'll have a great backdrop, and I just
Yeah.
wanted something to really feel the magnitude of the work that we do. And you and I have had this conversation before. Not a lot of people know me. They know me in my circles, but I just feel like I've kind of been waiting for this book and this space and this experience for myself
Mhm.
because now I see what I didn't know, and then you know what you don't know. And I just feel really ready to take that next leap. But the trust is helping with that a ton because you always go and feel like your mindset's been blown to a whole nother level and all of that. But the space feels really, really important part of it.
Yeah. Have we had you on a peer learning yet for the trust? Or are we going to? Because we
No,
gotta have this,
no, I'm
we gotta have this co you gotta bring this to the ladies. You gotta bring this to everyone in there. I'd love you to talk about it more with them, for our members.
I'd be absolutely
Yeah, and go a little
love
bit
to.
deeper because I know what we talked about today scratched the surface. You're gonna get I'm already my mind's already blown thinking about this receive thing. Like, everything I do through the day now, I'm like, "How am I gonna receive this ride on the highway? How am I gonna receive
Yes,
how am I gonna receive this meeting?" Right?
yes,
Just that flip
yes,
alone, like, just,
yes,
I think that's almost all I can take right now, like, and just approaching that,
yes,
so I'm excited. I like
yes.
that a lot. Tell everyone about the book and where they can follow you and what comes next.
Yeah, the book's called Unshakable Inner Peace. It's book one of the trilogy. And it's the subtitles Get Off the Mental and Emotional Roller Coaster for Good. I mean, this really is for people who've already been on a spiritual and personal growth experience for a while. It's definitely not for newbies in a way, because it is that elevated conversation of like, what are we not kind of getting? It will be launching to the full world early 2024. But if you're listening to this in October, November, December, as part of Ali's network, we'll put the link in the show notes. I'm doing a book club around it. That might be a great way to just come in and have the experience of reading it and going through some of the practices together. But if you're listening to this in 2024, you can go to Amazon or Barnes and Noble or wherever you go, and you can follow me on all the platforms. Rachael Jayne Groover.
I love it. So what's the reward in this for you?
The reward is unshakable inner peace. I mean, I have been triggered since COVID and all that happened. It was like, well, that was a test. And the this building was a test. But the reward is at the end of the day, nothing's sticking. No friction is sticking. And that's
Mm,
what I always wanted. I've always been attracted to spirituality and this divine connection, and I don't think there's any greater reward to be in that relaxation and that receptivity almost every moment.
I love that. That sounds great. Take me there. Take me there with you.
We would love to have you at any of the retreats, Ellie. You
Yeah.
let me
When is the
know and
spaceship leaving? I'll
we can
follow
go.
you up the ramp. I'll join. I'll join. Um,
The spaceship.
it's just,
That's so
you know,
funny.
with just some those days we have those moments. You're just like, okay, can I actually find
Yeah,
peace in this day? And I think you just gave so many of us a way to,
right.
we learn these little things over the years, but like, wow, that you just really flipped my
Right.
thinking. So thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, and I'll just say one last thing to end on this. It really starts with wanting it. And I know everyone says they want happiness, they want inner peace, they want their business success, but so often other things take the priority. So how much do you want
Mm.
a consistent stream of inner peace? And you need to put your attention there.
Can I add on? If you have another minute, I want to jump on that because
Yeah.
I feel sometimes too we're worried if we allow that to be our OS that the business will fail. If we're
Yes.
not doing
Oh
all the
yeah.
things, if we're not doing all
It
this
terrified me.
stuff, who's going to make a buck?
Yep.
Like where's the revenue
It
going to
was
come from? We should be doing this and
terrifying.
that and this and that. So are you
Yes.
also going to be addressing in your books and programs like how these coexist, or
Oh, absolutely.
does the peace actually drive the results? Like,
Well, it's in book 1, you'll see how terrified I was of it because that's what came up. I was successful, I could have lost everything, like and be in the I would have lost everything in the face of everybody else. It was gonna be a public loss, if I did that. But when people say awakening or enlightenment is like a death of the ego, and death right before it happens, it's like a that absolutely happens. That's why gurus, spiritual teachers said there is a death that happens and it is terrifying. And I had to go through that.
mm,
And so maybe the spaceship, Ali's like, let's have the spaceship next year. But what happens if you can stay with it and something else takes over? The reins take over. It's like an
mm,
ascent and a descent is how it felt to me. So the book 1 is about the terrifying before like what made the ascent happen. Book 2 is the ascent. What happened in that year afterwards and what I was continuing to unwind for it to stick. And then the descent started happening, which was I'm now feeling again ready. I know the difference of what I am now. Let's manifest with that versus manifest with my willpower and my
mm.
all of those things. So that's my biggest passion, the spiritual and successful, right?
Ooh.
They're coming together. But you don't get to have this hedging of bets for your success while you go through this portal of awakening. You have to give that up and be willing to give that up because you're giving up that seeking, grasping mind. Terrifying, yes, but I'll hold your hand through it.
Okay. All right. This sounds like it could be a movie. I'm thinking of like the Matrix trilogy, like number one, it's honestly like book one, you discover your power. He takes the blue pill, right? He's discovering his power. There is no spoon. Like it's all like, and then two, he's like starting to own the power, right? And then by three, he's like
Yes,
living it and
yes.
he's like, saving the world.
That's
I think
that is the
that's what I
trilogy.
feel. So I can't wait to see the rest of the story. Rachael Jayne, you're amazing. Thank you for
Thank
joining
you.
us. And all of you watching this and listening, I hope you get an idea of the depth of these women that are in the trust. And it's been really interesting. Just one last note, we've had several new members join us since the last meeting. And what's interesting, I'm hearing that these interviews on reward are making a big difference because they really hear who's behind a lot of these businesses and the type of
Mm,
women
mm,
that are with us, just bringing this depth of perspective and wisdom. And yes, everyone has these successful businesses and accomplished great things, but there's such a foundation to who they are and what they bring to our
mm.
community and what they bring to these rooms. I mean, it truly is extraordinary. And I can't wait for you to meet so many of our new members, Rachael Jayne, when you join us at the next meeting. So
Me too. Me
thank you.
too.
Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Mm,
Thanks, Rachael Jayne.
thanks.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. Subscribe now to the Reward Podcast to be sure to not miss an episode. And don't forget to visit jointhetrust.org to learn more about our modern community for forward-thinking 7- and 8-figure women entrepreneurs. You can learn more, apply to join us, or refer another woman you know who is over the $1 million mark and is ready for a different type of women's network. We have events coming up both live and online that are truly creating new possibilities for female leaders. That's jointhetrust.org. See you there.